Good
on
evening,
time.
November Foxtrot. Well done, Lance.
Lance has made it.
Mate. It was like a scene from Speed then defusing a bomb.
That was touch and go. Welcome to the show. Tonight we're going to be chatting.
I was watching
Woodland.
the time get closer to 8 o'clock.
We're going to be chatting Woodland Reconnaissance. It's going to be all about recce recon in the woods, following on from episode 224 where we talked about urban. So if you missed that, then please feel free to go back and watch that afterwards. This is fresh off the heels of the JBG event that we attended this weekend. So Ash was unfortunately able to make it. Andy is currently reconnoitering. What's the word? What word am I looking for? Reconnoitering. I don't feel that's right.
I don't know what you're working for.
Reconning. France. He's on holiday. But Lance and I both attended the JBG event. So we'll be talking about that. But how is everybody, first off?
I'm all good here. It's been a slow week, to be fair, but still good. How about you, Lance?
Lance looks like he's frozen.
Lance like,
we had Lance for all of about 2 minutes. And now he's gone. And now he's back. There
he is. He's back.
Hello.
Welcome back.
I was getting loads of lag, so I left
Lance?
and come back again. I'm good, mate. You?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. We're joined in the virtual studio audience at the moment by Blackbeard Lanav Challenge. Good evening. Welcome in. So might as well get started straight away. On the JBG event this last week, the recce course. Lance, do you want to give a bit of a lowdown? Because I know you were sort of not necessarily helping run it, but you were obviously involved with some of the organisation of it, so you've probably got a little bit more clued up than I am.
Yeah, so I did a bit of liaising with the JBG guys in the background, sort of ensuring that the site was sort of ready and sort of for their needs and what they wanted to do. So it's a little bit of few meetings leading up to the event and that, which all went very well. So yeah, would you want like have an overview of what?
Yeah, give an overview of the course, really.
Yeah. So basically, it was as one of the instructors stated on the course, it's a real recce training element in the British Army is about 7 to 10 weeks, I believe, and that's obviously what their aim was to condense that down into a 36 hour period. So it was sort of grabbing elements out of different parts of it and sort of modularizing that into a smaller module to carry out over a full Saturday into Sunday sort of mid-morning, which I think they've done rather well. There's obviously still a few elements to the course or to the recce course things as a whole that weren't included, which will be added in at a later date at the next course. But on the whole, for this one, obviously, we could do as you would do at most events. Arrivals could be from Friday afternoon, just to get yourself sort of squared away. You have the Friday social there, and then it started early doors Saturday morning with obviously normal standard safety briefs. This, what we could entail. We were divided up into sections prior to the event, so we sort of, I'm sure everyone got their own little personal WhatsApp groups going and sort of planning what kit they're taking, this, that, and the other. There was a generic kit list issued by JBG. As a sort of like a minimum guide to what you need to bring and what could be needed and this, that, and the other. And you can interpret that. Go on
that point on the kit list. So I followed the kit list religiously, right? Because obviously, I think it said on the kit list, I'll make sure there'll be kit checks. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I don't normally bring spare trousers. I don't normally bring loads of the stuff that was on it. And it was interesting that I did all of this, and then I mentioned it to I think Lanav Challenge. He'd followed it religiously. I mentioned to you, Lance, you were like, yeah, I didn't bring some of that stuff. I was like, oh.
I just thought of packed because obviously I packed with Machiavellian Alpha in mind, but obviously not having the weather that we encountered on Machiavellian Alpha. So that sort of liberated some of my kit from me because of the time of year that we're doing this course. So yeah, I just sort of, risk it for the biscuit and sort of got away with it, if I'm honest. But yeah, so going on from that, so we had our sections in the morning, and I believe our first sort of drill was going into sort of like the camo and concealment and close target observations, if you like, being able to see things that aren't necessarily meant to be in the natural environment. You know, there was a lot of talk about shape, shadow, shine, sound, signature, you know, no straight lines in nature, you know, dark objects, you know, things that really will stand out to you. Along with that, like applying cam cream and taking notes on that sort of thing of what we've seen in front of us. So yeah, so the first module was obviously how to apply cam cream, what's too much, what's too little, what's just right. Remembering to top it up as you go out through the day or through the course over the weekend, and being in that buddy system like with myself and Mike sort of thing. I might, you know, you could do a touching up a little bit there, on the back of the neck or whatnot, bit areas that you won't know that it's coming off from, just to keep yourself all cam creamed up, looking sharp as ever. And then obviously onto that was the JBG instructors put out some sort of like man-made objects into a natural environment, and we were given 10 minutes to spot them. Some were quite close to the point where some of them were about 3 foot away from us, some of them were 30 foot away from us, and so on and so forth. Some were quite out in the open, some were sort of obscured, and I think it was 10 items in total. I think I got 7, and the ones I didn't get were the ones right in front of my face. Literally, as soon as things started, I started looking afar, and then it was quite good because some people got the ones close up and didn't get the ones that were further away. And again, then we had a debriefing after that scenario played out, and it was a case of, you know, you using what's in front of you and scan like range.
I think we're losing him.
In front under your nose. Have you lost me? Am I back? Hello?
No, you're back. It went very laggy there for a minute.
Very laggy. It went really quick all of a sudden as well.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that because I've got full. So yeah, so that was the end of that scenario. And then we had a bit of a debrief after with some questions and this, that, and the other. And then we moved out into a bit of open land, also a vast open bit of area to carry out some long distance reconnaissance. Or recce, like using viewing aids, like laying down prone, using a bit of cover, taking notes on what we've seen, and there was like scenarios played out in front of us. We had to record timings and draw like sort of like to our front, like sort of sketch maps of what we could actually immediately see on the horizon, sort of picking out sort of like main features like large trees or gate or stuff like that. This is what happened there. This is why here. And well, so
yeah, Lance is sorry. The
loads going on. It was really free flowing. You know.
While Lance is sorting that out, there's a question for you guys. So obviously cam cream and stuff like that. Is there a particular area you put dark stuff on or light stuff and like stuff like that? Is it just to break up the general aspects of a face again?
So not necessarily being experts in this, whenever you put cam cream on your face, what you want to try and do is obviously distort the human face. All right, so obviously it's very distinguishable, so you want to try and put, from my understanding, kind of lighter bits where there would be darker and darker bits where it would be lighter. So for example, like your nose, sort of, I mean, just looking at, apologies, this is terrible audio for people watching the pod, listening back, but with things like your cheekbones and stuff like that, those are areas where obviously a lot more light hits. So you want to try and kind of darken those areas up, and you take the darker areas such as like the indent of your eyes and things like that and kind of lighten those, but at the same time throwing sort of disruptive patterns across your face almost. Not necessarily just big dark straight lines running all the way across, but one of the main outcomes of the course was ultimately that cam cream's a little bit of a learning curve. You kind of learn what best for you. To a certain extent, it's not a rinse and repeat type thing. Ultimately, whatever pattern you put on one time is not going to be exactly the same the next time you put it on. It will evolve throughout the day. My green on my color palette was an absolute nightmare. Yeah, that's, James said that's a very yank way of doing cam cream. I guess perfect for recon. The cam cream, the green I had in my cam cream was just absolutely rock solid. Whereas the brown and black were not too bad. They were still sort of properly applicable. And as we were getting sort of more into the evening, I was replacing the colours with darker colours because I figured that A, I could do that quickly, and B, it wouldn't matter so much at night. And then in the morning, sort of starting to kind of change it up a little bit, but it ended up being that, you know, we had index at 11. We were basically getting out back to the kind of the main fob area for like 6 for a different kind of activity at that point anyway, so it didn't really matter too much. I mean, the main one fundamentally is to break up that shape of your face, because it's such an identifiable thing. Like the whole, you know, that shape, you identify it as a person. So,
because it's one thing I've never actually done true airsoft or in the Milsons with cam cream. It's never been something that I've had to do. So, it'd be interesting to see how it goes if I have to do it in future events.
See, I'd use camp cream at skirmish events because ultimately that's what I'm practicing, I guess, almost. Like to me, I don't play skirmish events in the theory of it just being a skirmish day. Like I'm just rocking up to have a little bit of a blap. Like for me, I'm kind of testing stuff that I've done repeatedly. You know, if I've got new bits of kit or anything like that, kind of running those. And cam cream is just another part of milsim to me. Like, you know, if you're in an event that's a woodland scenario and you're going to be kind of laying up and kind of like trying to hunt the enemy per se, then cam cream's part of that. I mean, if you go to a milsim event and you're op 4 and you're portraying the role of a police officer or something like that, then obviously you're not going to be throwing a whole load of cam cream on.
No.
But yeah. But yeah, there is interestingly a massive difference in quality of cam creams. I mean, I've seen it in the past. Like some of them you can get that are proper cheap, and I think almost like refilled existing cases with necessarily like potentially like lower quality stuff, which are just rock solid. But I mean, for the most part, you can loosen it up. Generally, like decent cam cream, you can loosen it up over time with a bit of heat, bit of olive oil, saliva, something like that. Just basically kind of rehydrate it a little bit and kind of break that down.
Yeah.
But if it's proper cheap stuff, it can just be a nightmare. It's almost just like face paint almost. So
fair enough.
You back, Lance?
I am. I don't know. I just did a speed test and I'm getting 900 download and upload, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Very bizarre.
No.
Bit odd.
Okay. Well, we're back now. So in terms of we've obviously run the first module. So we did the cam cream and the observation tasks and everything like that. And then out in the field, we were doing the long range reconnaissance. That was quite good fun. That was I really enjoyed that. I don't think we'd really done before.
No, I haven't either. No, it was quite refreshing to do something completely different and sort of out your comfort zone, and almost essentially learning a new skill, really, which was good. You know, I've never
writing fast,
quickly sketching what's in front of you, and sort of like you say, picking out the main features and that, so you got something to reference later on. Like I was by that tree. Well, there's 1,000 trees in front of you. Any one particular? You know, it's quite good that there was like a dead tree off in the horizon which clearly stood out, so you could make a note of that and say, oh, it's X amount of meters from this or something. It was really cool. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was good.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned from the course specifically, and when you're one of the activities was basically sketch what you can see in front of you, because ultimately if you have a sketch and you can do it quickly, then you don't have to stay in that position necessarily. You've gone there, you've observed the area, you can pull back. But when Lance and I were literally trying to we were kind of, I think we had a bit of a down period and we were looking to see what we could see in the long distance on the hills.
Oh, you were fixated with trying to show me where this tractor was.
There was a tractor in front of a red house. No, but I was trying to do that on the perspective of it helped me to learn to describe the location of where that was, because we had a couple of people that were all sort of sitting in line. We're all trying to find this tractor. And I'm giving like descriptions based off what I can see in the foreground. So I was like, well, follow the tree line down and then you've got a big tree. But if I'd have just taken kind of a second back and gone, look, well, along the skyline, there's a perfect V directly above it. And if I'd have just taken that view and kind of looked at the overarching distinguishing features, which is that whole breaking down into what you can see in the short ground, the mid ground, and the long ground, then you actually get a better reference point. Yeah. And it was little things like that I kind of felt like I picked up a few kind of tidbits along the way, so that you don't just say, look at the tree just above the tree.
But that's also where you could use things like it's fist to the right of this, or fist to the left, or 2 fingers up and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's a quick.
That's what we would have normally done, except we were looking through binos and everything like that. Which
essentially looking at a tractor that's 2 miles away, nearly.
Yeah, I know, but if you've got something in the foreground that you can see without the binos, and you can say, it's basically a fist. It gives you a general direction then to look at.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Which is easier. It's like I'm a big fan of when I was sniping with my SRS and stuff like that. It would be a case of I had a red dot, and I used the red dot to find where I wanted to aim at. Then I'd look through the sight, sort of thing, and things like that. Just because it's easier to see something at a larger scale, then narrow it down instead of narrowing it down. To be honest with you, to see everything else.
Once we had the sketch, because being able to sketch what you can see in front of you, I could just point and go, look, you see that tree there? And then everyone could look up and go, oh yeah, I see that. Right, and then I can point to the actual location of it. So it's not, it's not bang on. I haven't drawn a complete to scale Rembrandt of the area. But it's enough that you can obviously then start to get those distinguishing features and what you're looking at. So.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Do you want to talk about your lovely hide you built? Or we built, I guess. But
yeah.
I know it's obviously got your Hessian wire set up on it.
There's not been, it still had dirt all over it from Machiavellian Alpha. It warmed the heart when we unfolded it, and it went poof. And everyone's like,
dust everywhere.
Hell. All the kit was completely covered in dust. It was brilliant. So sort of following on from like the long distance recce or observations sort of task we had, we then moved into sort of putting in like an OP, which was conflicting in some areas because initially we were told that we needed to get 2 people in it, and then it turned out we had to get all 5 of us in it, and that wasn't going to work. So I think we managed to get 3 at a squeeze in at the end, and with 2 on rear guard. So that was tough shit. That's how it had to be. But yeah, so we had a bit of a brief from the JBG instructors, sort of denoting what they sort of wanted to expect from the hide and some sort of little tips and tricks, and essentially then that was pretty much it. Quite a bit of a vague description of what they wanted, for good reason, because they wanted to see how the 3 sections or 4 sections, shall I say, built, constructed their OPs, the varying differences from how far back they would be from the tree line, looking out into the open field, or how close they might be, what methods went into constructing it, and how well camouflaged and this, that, and the other they were. So it was quite good that all 4 sections just sort of like went down 4 different routes with regards to construction and location as well. So what we did is, obviously I've built a few years ago now like a sniper hide cover, which is essentially 2 sheets of chicken wire laid out flat, probably slightly bigger than a basher, probably sort of like 2.7 by 2.5 meters square, and then I laid some Hessian sheeting over the top of that and secured it with zip ties, got it nice and dirty and filthy, and a bit of engine oil all over it, and dragged it around the woods at the back of the truck for a couple of laps when it was really wet over there, and picked up some debris and this, that, and the other on there. And it's quite good because it folds down nice and flat. It folds down pretty much to the size of like one of the Z-Mat sleeping mattresses, maybe ever so slightly bigger, that can just be bungeed onto the top of your Bergen. As much as I hate bungees, that's pretty much the only way you can transport it. So I do use a bungee for transporting that, but that is the only reason I use a bungee. Nothing else.
I was absolutely astounded when he said, Mike, can you pass the bungee? I was like, wait, what?
I was a little bit sick in my mouth when I said, can you pass the bungee? Yeah. So yeah. So we laid that out. What we did do is we cleared the ground first for any of the natural dry leaf litter that was on the floor, which we could then use to recover the hide that we were putting in. So we had it sort of like raised at the front, slightly pitch into the back. Luckily enough, there was already a fallen tree at the viewing point where we wanted to sort of like keep it as natural as possible. I sort of had the tyre stack in mind from Machiavellian Alpha, where use something that's in plain sight, that's always been there. So that tree had always been fallen there, so we sort of laid in behind it, still had a reasonable viewing field in front of us, and we sort of constructed it from there, kept it nice and dark and light areas just to blend in with the forest floor. Added a little bit of holly in here and there because there was already holly in the area, so again, we weren't getting unnatural vegetation. You're not going to get a load of rhododendrons and putting them in an area where there's no rhododendrons, because that's just going to stick out like a sore thumb. So we used things that were local to our location. And I think we did a reasonable idea. I think it could have been more structurally sound. You know, it was a little bit flimsy here and there. I think we got about half an hour to put something together between the five of us. It wasn't a great deal of like sort of like structurally sound branches or anything that we could use for sort of like putting in a good hardcover roof space or anything like that. So it was essentially sort of propped up on sticks and this, that, and the other, and tied off in places where we could tie it off to. But I think it blended in really well. You know, I got a few pictures of it from the inside and the outside of it and that, so which we can share on our Facebook and Instagram after this, so people can have a little look see. But on the whole, yeah, I think it was good. You know, certainly plenty of room in there for two guys to spend some quality time together, get nice and close and observe stuff.
But we got three in there at the maximum, didn't we? I mean, that was pretty tight. But I agree with you on the frame. I think if we'd have kind of constructed the frame first, because I think we'd kind of gone down the route of maybe putting the cover on too early, and then we were trying to sort of support that without having really anything to support it on, and then we were kind of building it up from that side.
Exactly that.
Then when we started chucking leaves and things on it, it was causing it to collapse in places.
So I think, if you have, again, you know, we were under sort of time constraints to do it. So I think you have a bit more time, a little bit more pre-planning, or sort of a little bit of practicing perhaps on getting like a rigid sort of initial structure before you put your hard cover on top or your roof covering, you know, your camo and concealment bits and bobs onto it after that. Then I think you're onto a winner. Obviously, it depends how long you're going to be there for as well. So the longer you're going to be there, the more rigid and structurally sound you want it to be. If you're only going to be there for a couple of 3 hours, you could probably make do with just the design of the sniper hide that I've done in mind. Is that it can be molded and shaped, and you can essentially just use that and just cover it for sort of like 1 or 2 men. So yeah, it was cool, but it was good. Again, it was good, and we got some lots of tips and tricks. We all walked round once the old klaxon had sounded at the end. You know, it's sort of down tools, and then we all sort of came together, and then we walked round each individual section's hide. They sort of told us how they went through the construction phase of it, what they did, what their intentions were for it, and like we were then, you know, asked to sort of critique and just say, oh, maybe perhaps you could have done that, or maybe try this next time and stuff like that. And it was good for all of them because everyone had all different ideas, different methods of putting one together. And again, it was just like a good collective of people coming together and with like loads of different ideas and sort of like in a similar field of constructing an OP, but obviously vastly variants along the way, sort of thing. So yeah, I thought it was good. It was really good.
So did they?
Big shout out to Boris as well.
Construction and stuff like that. Did they show you what sort of like ideal one would be like, or anything like that, or?
No, not really. No, I mean, obviously, because it depends, you know, the location you're in, what you've got around you. You know, there I don't suppose there is really an ideal OP. I mean, I'm guessing probably one that's subsurface with a very small slit that you can see far and wide, and the enemy can hardly see you. Would probably be, you know, in my mind, would be the ideal one because the minimal disturbance you've got above ground. You know, it's not going to draw the eye so much. Do you know what I mean? If you're having to build an above ground OP, you know, you're essentially putting something into a natural environment that wasn't there 24 hours ago. So you need to be very careful on how you go about doing it. Even to the point of, you know, like breaking off branches or breaking off sticks or gathering things from the ground. You know, you're still leaving that trace of something has moved that. And now if someone's got a keen eye and they're walking through and you're in there and they're like, oh, wasn't like that? Why has that been moved? Why is there that snaking sort of sliver of like leaves gathered up or whatnot? You know, so you've got all those things on your mind when you're sort of building one. But yeah, they did
the range as well.
Well, this is it. You know, I mean, we're talking airsoft at the end of the day. I mean, we're talking, you know, sub 100 meters. Essentially to be able to engage something with your rifle as well as viewing stuff and things like that, you know. Other OPs, they could be, I'm guessing they're going to be plus 100 meters. You know, it's going to be getting increasingly further away with more powerful weapons and more powerful optics. But we can't start bringing 308s to airsoft.
But I mean, if we were doing an event which, you know, required, I can't think of a specific site that would work. So say potentially Longmoor. We'll use Longmoor as an example because obviously that's everyone's kind of been there. If you were providing an OP on sort of one of the buildings on sort of Jan Smuts potentially, or maybe Pretoria, the one that faces out onto the fob, the kind of the OP.
Jan Smuts,
yeah. If you were putting something in there, then potentially you've got enough tree line there and open ground that you wouldn't have to have it right up close. If you're literally just undertaking observation, Obviously, if you're providing a fire solution in airsoft, you need to be closer because there's no way of avoiding that. But if you are literally, able to get 200 or 300 meters away, and then you are just, getting glasses on to basically record what's going on, it doesn't have to be as developed. I mean, you could potentially even just get away with a basher at that point because you are such a distance away that unless someone's specifically looking for you, that's kind of what you want to cover yourself against. So I think it does depend massively on what your objective is, and I think that's probably more so with airsoft, because if you are doing a fire support mission, then ultimately you need to be within the range of an airsoft rifle, which you're talking 100 meters, maybe 150 at the absolute most, with a very, very decent sniper rifle.
Yeah, and that's pushing it massively.
Yeah, it is massively pushing it. Yeah, you have to have a good backwind coming at you, and a little bit of loft on that rifle, maybe, perhaps. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you've got enough time, as well as Lance said, you could get into the realms of digging out a proper little divot to get into, and then you could again, if you're going to be there for a month, then you would make that a lot more comfortable than if you're going to be there for 20 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
It massively depends on what your tasking is on that front.
100%, mate. Couldn't agree more.
So then we went into had a bit of lunch, and then basically went into the op, didn't we? At that point.
Yeah, we did one more, didn't we? After we'd done the hide builds, we did one more long distance observation.
Oh yes, doing some more
from a different position,
sketching,
just to see what it was like. Yeah, that was cool. And then after that, obviously, we exfilled and then started prepping kit for the op in the evening. It was push off about 19-30 hours, I think, for the ops to start, which was good. And I was quite impressed with our little tab in with Bergens.
Yep. So the premise for the night op was basically there was a location by which we knew where it was. We were told that it was a village, and that we basically had to record any information that we had. We were broken down into 3 observation teams, and then we kind of around between the 3 of us, the 3 teams, kind of dictated which sector we were going to be coming in from, just so that we didn't have massive overlap and we weren't basically just recceing the same thing from the same angles and basically getting in each other's armpits, because that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. We had sort of like a pre-briefing, didn't we? We sort of got together, like 3 sections got together and decided.
As you would with most airsoft events and stuff like that. You just a bit of a collab session. And then we tabbed in, we set up an LUP, just basically simple basher, little flat spot, someone to get the head down. Fortunately, it didn't rain throughout the event, so we didn't need to actually use that in the end. But it was there if we needed it, kind of concealed and stuff, so that we had somewhere to fall back to.
Really good.
And whilst I was setting that up, Lance, Boris, and Danny went off to try and establish some OPs.
Yeah, that was easier said than done. Jesus Christ. So we were Alpha section, obviously. Alpha's the best. And so we pushed out from where our LUP was. Now, obviously, I know the site, literally like the back of my hand. I could traverse that site blindfolded. That's not a challenge, by the way. And so we thought, right, so we pushed up to sort of knew from the map. I sort of wanted to play a little bit dumb to it, because obviously, I know Boris hadn't been to the site before. Just want to say, Boris, absolutely, if he does listen back to this, absolutely gentleman of a man. Quite happily do any more events with him if he's about. So yeah, absolutely sound guy. Obviously, and Danny, of course, known him for donkey's years. So yeah, so I played a bit little dumb to it. Got them using got the map out and said, right, okay, this is where we're at. Blah 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 blah. I've got to push up to here. Started pushing into the rhododendrons. Now the problem we've got is over at the site we were at now. It is in full bloom. I mean, it is in turbo greenery. So the target location was on the crest of a hill. And the way that if you imagine from the enemy's point of view, they were looking down the hill, where at the bottom you had like a gully, and then over the gully you had a hill that came up the other side of it. Now we were on the opposite side of that valley, if you like, to this location.
I think I know what you're on about.
We've not only got our canopy to think about of getting line of sight to the village or the enemy compound, we've also got their canopy of the tree line going up the hill and sort of staggering heights of trees and being able to see through the canopies of these trees to that village. Now it was like, this is a fucking nightmare. So we went right out to the left flank, came in from the rear of that, got into a position. Well, Danny and Boris stayed at the rear guard. I sort of crawled up underneath all these rhododendrons, literally on my belt buckle, for a good 50, 60 metres. Managed to get eyes on the village. However, you wouldn't have been able to get another person into that position. Just as I got into that position, an enemy foot patrol came past about 4 or 5 foot away from me. Luckily enough, I stayed very still. They then stopped directly where I was and just stared into the bushes. And I was just like, I've definitely been made here. Definitely been made. They're not going for their weapons. I can't remember if they were armed. I don't think they were armed. But I'm just going to lay very still because I'm going to play a game of chance here and think positive thoughts that they haven't seen me. And anyhow, they just sort of like, it was a bit of a film moment. We know where someone stops and looks, and they just carry on chatting and walk away. And I was just sort of like, 50p, 5p, 50p, 5p. So I was like, well, this clearly isn't going to work here because we're going to have to. I mean, we were at that point there where I was, we were probably between sort of 30 and 35 metres away from the centre of their village, which in my eyes was far too close for a reasonable OP position to be able to record data, relay intel back to zero using radio comms, and bits and bobs like that. General, obviously you're staying as quiet as you can, you're moving as little as you can, but you are going to generate sound. And this wasn't even dark yet. The forest was still quite alive. There was still plenty of movement. There was a lot of background noise from their camp coming out. So I'll lead on to the aircraft in a little while. So we exfilled from that point. We then we sort of pushed down to the right more, tried going in again, no luck. Ended up getting our OP established just after 10 o'clock. So that's how long we were out there crawling on our bellies, looking for not the perfect location, but a serviceable location where we could, realistically get eyes on, start recording data, relaying that back, and building up a bit of a target package. We had a real struggle on our side. Not only did we have the longest tab in with kit, with all intents and purposes, we took all our kit because we wanted to put a proper OP in, use all the sniper hide roofing and stuff like that. Which in the end, none of it was used. Not one bit of the, not one bit of the, and literally it harks back to use what's in front of you. We didn't have a big pile of tyres this time, so but luckily enough we had an enormous oak tree with a huge amount of bushes at the bottom of it that the guy doing the recording and noting down any details could snuggle into, and the guy on my right hand side who had the thermal and the night vision could then get eyes on the target and start relaying information to me, which was good. So we had that in place for a while. And what we were doing is once we got that established, I managed to get Mike and Danny up as a 2. Myself and Boris were a 2. So then we started stagging on and off. We then created a sort of makeshift secondary LUP where the guys were about 50 metres back from our OP position. They could just snuggle into a bramble bush, attempt to sort of shut their eyes for a bit or just not be so on edge that they could just relax. Body can relax a little bit and mind can relax. And we sort of stagged out after an hour and a half, 2 hours. And the good thing is where the location was, because it's on the Gatwick flight path, whilst the planes were starting to come in, or a plane was coming into land, we were then using that opportunity to change out our rotation, because obviously there's an awful lot of leaf litter, a lot of dry sticks, wood, branches on the floor. You can't avoid, even with night vision on, you'd still be making noise. It was unavoidable, especially at the location we were in. So we used the cover of the aircraft coming right overhead for Danny and Mike to make their way to us, for us to have a quick changeover, a little bit of a brief, and for me and Boris to then exfil back to the secondary LUP, whilst Danny and Mike then inserted themselves into the OP under the cover of this aircraft going over, plus the fact it being night time, very minimal, actually zero light was used to sort of traverse to and from the secondary LUP into the OP. So that was really, really good drills. That was impressive. And then 1:15 a.m. happened, and there's no nights into Gatwick after 1:15 a.m.
It was so quiet.
It was
ridiculous.
Literally, we had an aircraft come in, so me and Boris started making our way down to the OP to relieve Mike and Danny. We got 3/4 of the way there, and it was just deathly silent. We were like, shit. So then Mike and Danny had to exfil. And literally, you could have even noise in camp had quietened down by at this point. There was no more shouting or joshing about or music or anything like that. So you could have heard a pin drop, which wasn't good. And that's when we started getting some searchlights. You hear one branch break or stick break, and it draws your attention. You hear another one, and then you think, oh, something's moving over there.
Yeah.
So we were a little bit, I'd say probably a bit of a soft compromise at that point. So then we exfilled back to our original LUP, and then myself and Boris went back out again to establish another OP, which we didn't get in place until it had to have been about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning when we finally started getting eyes on again and sort of gathering the intel. But the intel we gathered was accurate. Do you know what I mean? It was good. It was very much in time with the other sections that had their OPs in, albeit from a different location on the map and obviously from a different point of view. So it was cool that when we got back after the op, we obviously broke down the OP, broke down the LUP, tabbed back out to the harbour area, sort of got some food and drinks and that down us, and then we sat down with the instructors, had a debrief, and sort of went through our recce notes of what we'd seen, what we'd heard, timings, and this, that, and the other, and it pretty much married up, give or take a couple of 3 minutes, due to different watches being set at different times and things like that. Didn't synchronise watches, unfortunately, but yeah, I think one of the instructors said, they sort of gave sort of 5 minutes either side of a time, or 3 or 4 minutes either side of a time for it to be accurate. Someone records 02:33 and someone says, oh, it happened at 02:35. It's pretty much the same sort of time,
Yeah.
So that was really good. It was really good. It was quite grueling, just maintaining that concentration for that amount of time and running on zero sleep for. I think I woke up at 6:30 Saturday morning, and I didn't sleep. Well, me and Boris slept for about an hour. We sort of we did an inverted spoon back to back because we'd only just met, so we didn't want to go full spoon straight away. But we thought, right, we're not going to move into this OP until we've just started getting a bit of natural light, because we couldn't see fuck all, and if we'd put torches on or anything, they would have seen the light straight away. So I thought, let's wait till dawn's just breaking, just so we can make out some branches and that through the gloom and sort of find our way that way. So I think we shut our eyes for about 50 minutes, I suppose. I managed to pull out a bit of camo net scrim from my Bergen, from my day sack. We laid that on the floor. I laid one way, he laid the other, and we were back to back, snuggled up on my belt kit, and it was lovely. Very comfortable sleep. Probably one of the most comfortable sleeps I've ever had in my life. He jokes. And that was that, yeah. So that's all she wrote. But it was brilliant. It was. I love things like that. I genuinely love the challenge, like the mental, physical challenge. I was a bit concerned about the kit I was carrying in, but because I haven't done it for a long time, it's weird for someone who doesn't do that sort of thing day in, day out. It is a real challenge for them. You got, your current serving British Army soldier just tabs around with fucking kit on all day long, so they're just machines. You know what I mean? Which is great. But for the likes of us, it certainly is a challenge, but a welcome one nonetheless.
Yeah. Mike, you muted, I think.
Mike is muted.
I should be coming back on there. But there we go.
He is.
Oh, so your camera's still off as well.
Oh bollocks! Hang on.
We one of the learning curves for me, and it's something that we haven't yet necessarily found a solution to yet, but in the transition of the the OPs, Danny and I had sort of headed back to the LUP to basically just get a little bit of downtime. And in that process of getting that downtime, I think you and Boris had come back and then gone back out to set up an OP again.
Yeah.
Where the first one had effectively been bumped, but then we had no way of finding you again. So when I woke up to come out and relieve you, God foggiest where you were.
The thing is, we were debating coming back. I just thought we were in the position now. I said we might as well. No.
I grant you. Yeah, it was probably better to stay there, especially with all the noise and everything like that. Trying to find my way around in the dark, it wasn't going to be the quietest. But
it was weird because we were literally 5 meters north of where the first one that I crawled into, where the foot patrol stopped and stared into the bush. We were literally 5 meters, just a little bit further up from that. But it was quite funny because I think Charlie section had earmarked that for an OP of theirs to come back into. So me and Boris were laid up when we pulled this veil that I got over us, like a meshy veil, camouflage meshy veil. So we had that pulled over to both of us. And down just to sort of negate any glare from scopes and stuff like that. And literally I heard a noise to my left. I thought, oh, it must be some deer, because there's loads of deer at this location. And I looked again. I thought, oh no, it's not, unless it's a deer wearing a ghillie suit. So then one ghillie suit came round, like there was like a barrier of rhododendrons that you could see through, and there's like a game trail. And then a second one came out and they went to ground, and then another two came out and they went to ground. And I think I purposefully moved. I think I moved my leg up or something like that, and I could see Patrick, and I think that's when he sort of eyeballed us then and thought, well, bollocks, someone's already there. we just saw these shadowy figures just make their way. It did look very cool. They did look very, very cool coming out the bushes. You know, you had James and Kev, the Defiant guys, Patrick. You had Tactical Doodles, Bill, and Max. I think it was Max Elliott. Yeah, lovely guy. So there was a 5-man section there. They were all gillied up and through the gloom. It's very, 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 very Call of Duty. Yeah, it did look cool. Did like that. Yeah. Sorry, but not sorry.
Once we got back, we then sort of coordinated a bit of a strike package at that point, and then it was effectively just running some of the kind of team drills that we'd done a little bit of earlier in the day, just to kind of manoeuvring in and kind of, you know, how you then basically take your team of 5 and then, you know, peel left, peel right, bounding in, etc., stuff like that. So,
just cutting back quickly to pre-OP building. We did do some section drills, didn't we? And bits and bobs like that. You know, fire and manoeuvre, pepper potting, bounding, whatever you want to call it, and some basic patrol bits and bobs, which a lot of us has already done previously. But it's always nice to refresh. And obviously for guys who hadn't done that before on the course, it was good because it's a new thing for them, which everyone took on board. You know, wholeheartedly. You know, Mr. James from Defiant. Now I've probably forgotten the amount of times he's done hand signals and drills and bits and bobs like that, but he's obviously still got involved nonetheless, because obviously there's guys there that hadn't done it. So no, it was really cool. It was really good to see some really, really good training and some good drills.
That's good to
hear. Yeah, very good, very good.
I certainly think if you never done anything like that before, then it's worth it from the perspective of, you know, it's gonna teach you an awful lot. If you've never done anything like that before at all, you're going to learn an awful lot in terms of sustainment, keeping warm, and everything like that. And you'll probably be cold, you'll probably be a bit miserable, and you'll come away from it having an awful lot of experience on that front. If you have done stuff like that before, it's still worth doing, because it's practicing, it's asking questions. There's obviously people there that you can ask stuff to that, you know, have done it properly. And you know, it's worthwhile.
It is brilliant. Like you said, it's for both ends of the spectrum, for newcomers to sort of like the recce side of things, or the more hard routine, if you want to call it that. It's a really good controlled environment to go through those motions with, if you wanted to use it in that way. It's a great way for testing your kit. It's a great way for adminning yourself and sort of like looking back afterwards and giving yourself your own personal debrief. And sort of thinking, right, I'm not going to need that next time. I might need that if the weather is a bit more inclement and we're subject to changes in the weather. We pretty much had great weather for the whole weekend. It was really good. You know, it was a bit overcast. It was still nice and warm. Had a couple of spots of rain on the Friday night, which was nothing to worry about. But for the most part, it was perfect weather for an airsoft event. You know, it was hot. It wasn't windy at all or anything like that. So it was really good. But I mean, For me personally, from the event, there's a lot of mixing up with my kit that I'm going to be doing now, and I'll be brutally honest with you, it's really, really ignited the flame for mil simming and that again for me.
That's good.
Which was, I'll be brutally honest, was lacking purely through work stuff going on and not being able to attend events and that. But this really gave me to coin the phrase of Boris Johnson, the real shot in the arm that I needed for to sort of get back into it and sort of really start enjoying it. You know, it's been going through I've been working on my motorbike today, but in the back of my mind I've been going, I want to unpack my belt kit, or I want to find my relocation cable for my radio, and I'm trying to bleed the rear brake caliper on a motorbike, which is really crucial for stopping, and I'm thinking about airsoft, and I'm like, you need to concentrate. What are you doing, you fucking idiot? Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really got me buzzing for it again, which has been really, really good. So I'm very grateful to JBG for that. Yes, because I was wandering the wastelands of what do I do? But now I'm sort of like, very fully on board again. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I really have. Yeah, the bug has definitely come back. and bitten me on the arse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the same, to be honest with you. Like, I'll be fair. I'll probably find Recce or recon just a little bit too slow for me. Like, I don't get me wrong, I'm not a speedy boy at all. I'm one of the kind of like, I'm quite happy to kind of lay up and set up an OP.
I don't know. I've seen you shift, mate. Yeah. I've seen you shift.
Yeah.
To the point where you tricked at Longmore once and nearly took the side of a building out.
Yeah, true. But the thing that I really struggled with, massively struggled with, is just being able to see at night. Like, night ops for me have just been insufferable.
I do, mate. I struggle to see at night time.
I can't see. I'm a big mass moving through the trees. I don't have the memory for where all the paths and everything were. And like trying to exfil that first time was just like, oh God. Like every time I was with Danny, bless, who, Danny's not got the best hearing. So
you're the right fucking pair then, you two.
Shout to each other.
But it's good because it's that challenge. It's that personal challenge,
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not. It's night time. I'm not going out. Because there is some events where you can do that. Oh no, I'm sorry guys, I'm not there. But you force yourself to do it, and it was wicked. Do you know what I mean? It was really cool.
Oh no, wholeheartedly. I'm a big believer in if it's your task to do something and you go down and do that. I think there is an element of if you're given downtime, make use of that downtime. And I say I think one of the biggest things that I came away with from the weekend was right. In the situation where you are setting up an OP, you've got to have some sort of, because we basically ditched the comms at that point because we were worried that the comms were going to give us away because, you're sitting there with like things, something like that, which headsets or whatever can still be quite noisy. And it was that quiet that, I mean, I was running a Bowman headset, and where that's not in ear or anything like that, literally you could hear the Bowman headset even on quieter settings if I just kind of put it a little way away. So,
mate, the code red bone conducting, outstanding, outstanding.
Yeah,
I just wish I might have to mod it slightly though, because I did find that the back bit, although you've got that rubber band that you can adjust to sit in like the small of your head, if you like. I think it does need some sort of retainment over the top of the old bonds. So I think I might try and sort of see if I can sort something out for that, even just a piece of elastic, just to support that back bit. Because I did find that when I was prone and I'm sort of looking forward, that it was dropping down and sort of catching there, and it's just like a bit of a ball ache. So I might try and sort of mod a strap to go up over the top, just to sort of, so I've got like 3 points of contact, if you like, for that setup. But audio wise, and I didn't get any complaints from Ryan. Obviously, if I lost a little bit of signal and he said, "Oh, you're coming through garbled or whatnot, or comms broken," but for the most part, it was literally crystal clear. And obviously, you still keep your ambient hearing around you, sort of thing. Because you've got nothing actually in the ear, which I thought for this was perfect. Really, really good. Really impressed.
I've got my Code Red bone conduction headset. I didn't take it because I wasn't set up for that, so I used my Northern Ireland chest rig, which I've never used before. So it was a
great piece of kit.
I'm testing bits of kit that I've never used before and like that. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn.
Lovely to see you in webbing as well.
Yeah.
Bit of a dish in webbing, must say.
Yeah.
There's two things that sort of sparked my excitement this weekend. Was Mike in webbing and a chest rig, and Bill, Tactical Doodles Bill in cam cream.
Yeah.
He looked quite wonderful. I'm not going to lie. He looked round at me and I was like staring. I was just sat there staring at him like that, and he was like, "What are you looking at?" I said, "You." He was like, "Why?" I said, "Can I just say you look wonderful in cam cream?" I said, "You should do that more often." He's like, "Really? Do I?" I was like, "You really do." We had a bit of a moment.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a question a little while back from Landnav. What kit do you think you could leave at home next time? I mean, my Bergen was a full Dutch Army. I think it's 120 litre, something like that, with the rocket pouches.
It's a very good Bergen, that is.
Pouches up. Yeah, I do really like them.
It's very similar. Sorry, just quickly cut in. It's very similar, I find, because when I first looked at it, because I forgot you got it because of the fucking 900 Bergens you've got. I forgot that you had
I've got the short one as well.
Obviously, goes without saying. I thought it was the Caramore SF because it looked very similar to the Caramore SF that I had. But obviously Dutch Army, and unless it's a sort of a copy sort of thing or something along the same lines. But great Bergens, absolutely. For the padding on them are fucking second to none. Really good.
I mean, it's interesting as well with a lot of the Dutch Army stuff. I appreciate you obviously get grade 1 and grade 2 quality in terms of surplus. it does seem to be, if the Dutch Army stuff goes, it properly goes. So like all the liners and stuff like that start to peel off quite quickly once they've gone. But I'm quite fortunate with the Dutch Army that I've got, the Bergen. But I'd set it up so the rocket pouches I can just unzip and then turn into a backpack, because they literally unzip off the Bergen, zip together. I'd already kind of put the straps on there, so I can literally just throw that on as a backpack, which whilst that is good from a logistics-wise, moving from an LUP to an OP, because you've got all the kit that you need, you've got cooking kit and everything in there, it doesn't then give you enough room for things like a concealment system. It doesn't give you room necessarily for a basher. So I put a poncho in there, not really realising quite what we would need, if that makes sense. So I think if I was to do it again, I'd probably take probably like a 40 litre ruck, somewhere sort of close to that, with the ability that, you know, maybe I can just have it so the rocket pouches come off the Bergen and then go straight on that, for example. I don't even know if that exists, but just a small pack, basically, that you can then chuck in things like a camo sheet, or, you know, even just like a jungle blanket or something like that. So when it does get cold,
just something
you can stay in position. You just got something to throw over you. Yeah.
I mean, it was great drills that me and Boris went through when we were waiting for the dawn to break and that, because there was a couple of times where we sort of shut our eyes for 20 minutes and woke up and we felt cold. Like the ground sucked. It wasn't the fact that the air around us was cold. It was the fact that we were on the ground with no insulation, and the ground literally just sucked the heat from our bodies. So it was a case of waking up, okay, busting out the softy jacket, whip the smock off, softy jacket on, smock back on, warm up. It was the same for Boris. He had like a thermal overlay that he was whipping his top off, putting the thermal on, top back on. It was good. It was really good drills. Evening, sir. So like Ash said, Mike. So from a kit point of view, is there sort of kit that you feel you brought on the course that wouldn't be required on the course, regardless of the time of year or sort of going forward?
I never bring spare trousers.
I don't.
Never.
I'm not going to lie.
So
I don't.
Now, admittedly, I tore my trousers. So I am adamant that step ones, the fabric that they use for step ones, seems to bind to the fabric that's used in the Helican SFU Next trousers. So those two things should be kept apart, and I will no longer be wearing step ones with those trousers going forward, because I've now had 2 or 3 pairs go where I think I've stretched you know, sort of I haven't lunged per se, but I've just kind of stretched down to grab something, and I think the fabric from the shorts basically grabs the fabric from the trousers, and it doesn't allow it to slide over it as it would do normally, like with cotton underwear or anything like that.
Trapping it in the old moose knuckle sort of thing.
No, I literally think there's friction between the 2 bits of fabric, and I think it grips more, basically. So when you're stretching, the trousers are pretty old anyway at this point, and I think it's put a lot more stress on those stitching than it would have done otherwise. Because I say, it's definitely not the first pair of trousers I've had in that exact same scenario, and I've never had that with any other pair of shorts. So bar the fact that I ripped a hole in my trousers, I still wouldn't take a spare pair of trousers with me.
That's a fair one.
And sort of, you know, I'd take, you know, spare socks and a spare top. Probably wouldn't worry about spare underwear or anything like that. For the most part, just because I'm yet to be in a position, and I've been in very heavy rainfall, where I've really worried about my legs too much. It generally, for me, tends to be my top, making sure that's warm and dry.
I mean, if you could take that's exactly that, mate. That's where all the core, that's where all your core is, and that. Do you know what I mean? The legs can take care of themselves, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
you can go commando. It's not a case of going commando per se. I would take pants, just to clarify.
Certainly, quick wicking if you go commando.
So that was like a big element for me, because, you know, that a spare set of clothes is quite a reasonable lump to take. Yeah. I think if it was proper hammering it down, I would probably go down the route of taking a small tent, genuinely, for an LUP, not for an OP. But if you're laying out in an OP and you are getting absolutely drenched, coming back when you can rotate off with the opportunity that you can get somewhere completely dry. And I appreciate, obviously, a basher can allow that. But a tent gives, you know, a bit more protection. I genuinely think if you had a 5-man team, just take one USMC, which gives you 2 sleep positions that are just bone dry then.
Yeah, that's a fair one.
and it gives you somewhere that you can dry off in there, and it's pretty concealed. Like we've tested the USMC over on that site before.
We have, yeah.
You know, and it's a very decent setup for that location, basically. Not quite as versatile as a basher. Obviously, you can put a basher in more locations. You need a little bit more of a flat spot for a proper tent, but I would probably take that next time. And then other than that, I think it's just a case of pretty much just making sure that you know what your activity is, what tasking you've got. Because I think part of the problem was we weren't sure with some of the exercises throughout the day. So when people were asking for bits of kit, I'd planned in my mind that I can just take my backpack off from the rocket pouches and then I can go and do the course, for example. Whereas, you know, there was a couple of times I go, oh, right, you'll need this now. So I've got to trek back and go grab that because I didn't carry it on me the whole time. Whereas when we went out to do the exercise, by taking the full Bergen, you've got everything. Absolutely everything is there and with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the only thing. Oh, and I'm going to ditch. I've got the Clansman pouch on the Northern Ireland rig that sits on the top left-hand side, which is a bit of a pain. So I'm probably going to ditch that off because putting all the comms in there, everything was like here, and it was really annoying.
Yeah. That's a fair one. Yeah, I've got there's some bits I'm going to rejig on my kit. For example, I'm going to ditch my cook set out of my belt kit, and I'm going to use that pouch for my secondary comms. I've already got one on there for running team comms and stuff like that, but I'd like to have one dedicated for zero net. So I'll probably just sack that off because when you're out in an OP, it's literally, I mean, especially for what I eat now, I mean, it's just like a can of corned beef or a bit of bacon grill, something like that, some beef jerky. And the other thing that I took on, which I took out of us, which was an absolute blessing, was my big old Stanley flask. So I brewed up in the safe zone. Actually, didn't brew up in the safe zone personally. James from Defiant and Patrick did a couple of had the Kelly kettle on the go, so I managed to pilfer some boiling hot water out of it from them guys, and that gave me hot brews through the night in the flask, which was good. So I'm also almost tempted to invest in a slightly bigger one because that lasted me for the 12 hours. You know, I managed to get three or four of these bad boys out of it. Which goes in the old, and that does actually. I was a bit concerned because I lost my smaller one of these. Can't find. I think John nicked it. John from our team, he's a bastard for stealing cups off of me. I think he's got it, so he's got two of these now, but the smaller ones, which fit perfectly in a ammo pouch of a belt kit. This one does go. On my belt kit, it does, you know, the lid still goes over the top, and the Velcro just sits slightly higher. So, godsend, that does work, and it holds more coffee, which is brilliant. Couple of badmin areas on my part. I ran out of coffee. Thought I had more coffee sachets on me than I did. So, smack. And I bought the wrong head torch. I thought it was a triple layer, and it wasn't. It was a rechargeable. So they're cocked up there because I bought a brand new pack of batteries with no torch to use them in, which was frustrating. But you adapt and overcome. Again, from James from Defiant. If James from Defiant hadn't been at the event this weekend, not only would I have not been able to charge my head torch,
died.
I would have not been able. Well, I would have got hot water. I would have just had to do it with my own stuff and not used his. So lovely. It was lovely that James was there to help me.
So,
but kit-wise, I mean,
back a little bit.
Go on, mate. Go on.
Sorry, just 2 seconds. Facebook appears to have gone down, so sorry to anyone listening on Facebook that has now had to transition over. It is literally just shut off, unfortunately. So
brilliant. Good on Facebook.
Handy.
Great. Yeah, just going back a little bit, you obviously said about navigating in the dark was a nightmare and stuff like that. So would night vision have helped you? Obviously, getting to your OP, it would help you, but like getting into your OP and stuff like that, would it have helped, or would the depth perception have screwed you over a little bit?
I tried Boris's. He had Gen 2 monocular that he just kept in a pouch on his rig. So it was really cool. He had a cool setup. He had a little thermal monocular, and he had a Gen 2 monocular, which he just kept in a zip up pouch on his chest rig, he just whipped it out now and again and bosh, having a little look about. And his night vision was really good. The depth perception, it wasn't that the scale of it wasn't that bad. Do you know what I mean? If I was looking at say my mic here was a tree and I had that up and I put my hand to it literally was like for like. Whereas some of them you can be like, oh, there's the tree. Oh no, there it is. Do you know what I mean? So that one was quite good. I actually didn't get the brand of the one he's got. I'll hit him up after this and find out. The only thing I did find with it is when I looked at the floor, it looked like the you know, if you get a sunlight shining through a swimming pool and you get the shadow of the ripples on the bottom of the pool, the whole ground looked like that. Not that they were moving, but it was that pattern of overlaying lines and stuff. Although they weren't there to the naked eye, obviously, or anything, but you could see it for it. And that sort of wondered, is that bramble bush, or is that leaf litter, is that floor? What is that bit? Do you know what I mean? So that was a little bit confusing, but I think the nods would be great for getting to the OP location. Now, getting in to the OP and adminning yourself, I mean, obviously they will help because you can still sort of see, but like you say, Ash, the depth perception and how the very small, small movements you do getting into that position, I'm not sure if that would help or not, if I'm brutally honest. But certainly traversing the ground from the LUP to the OP, it would certainly help.
I have no night vision and I have bad eyes. Right. And this was one of the things I think I learned. I think I said this to you, Lance. I think when we were doing the observation thing, like one of the immediate first courses I learned was just the fact I've got terrible eyesight and probably need to get something done about it at some point. But for me, I don't own any night vision, but I have had a chance to kind of try out some bits of kit. And it's not so much a case of I'm not looking at it from the micro texture and everything like that, like branches and sticks like that. Fine, you're going to be coming up against that within the woods, and that's just a case of how you step. For me, the problem is that I'm in that environment longer because I have no fucking clue as to where I'm going. You come up against a bank of stinging nettles and stuff like that, and whilst I'm all for pushing forward, if it becomes impassable, you've then got to backtrack out, and you're going to be making noise the whole time that you're doing that. You've got things like little kind of animal trails and stuff like that. As long as you can kind of roughly follow them and you've got an idea where you're going, that's what I'm looking for with some sort of like vision aid. Thermal, having borrowed your thermal, Lance, didn't really help to get back because it just didn't have the capability to see the level of detail. And that's all I need is just ultimately I just need something that allows me just to get like a clear picture as to what's around me and where I'm going. So that I'm not literally stumbling through, trying to avoid trees, trying to avoid branches. Don't literally have a clue where I'm going. It's almost like I think it's this way, and that's the problem for me.
Yeah, no, with you.
So, I mean, you've used NVG, Ash. I know obviously you've got a little bit more experience.
Yeah, most
with that
of my
as well.
NVG experience has been it has a bit in woodlands and then mainly in urban areas and stuff like that. But it's normally a mono and I've only ever used it to navigate. It's like as soon as I know I'm gonna like sitting still for a little bit, it'd be there so I could see the distance, but it wouldn't be something I'd use when I'm fighting, if you know what I mean. Because it's a mono and it'd be easier just to white light at that point, and once you've engaged, you've engaged. But it's more. I was just curious about like. Obviously, once you get into that OP, like trying to get into OP, it's very slow, methodical movements. And I just feel like maybe the night vision would have hindered you a little bit in that respect. In my head.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I think ultimately for me, it's more to say I had no clue I had no point of reference. It's pitch black, and bar, a little kind of like, oh, Lance, where are you? Or something like that, which. Danny and I got to a point where we were trying to, we just briefly paused. I think Danny had caught himself on a branch or something like that. So we had to stop. And then we had half an hour of not knowing where Lance and Boris had gone. Because as soon as they stepped out of, there was like a little clearing. As soon as you guys had gone out of that, we just couldn't see them. No idea where they were at all. And because you're obviously trying to be quiet, you've got light discipline, noise discipline. There's no way of finding people, basically. So.
Got another question for both of you. I'm guessing you both wore some sort of proper hiking boots and stuff like that. Would you have felt, in terms of traversing the terrain in darkness, like something like Vans or trainers and stuff like that would have made it easier because you could have felt the floor underneath you a bit more?
I was in my... Actually, for a change of pace, I actually wore my winter boots for this event purely because I knew I was going to be stacked for a long time. So I actually went with my Altberg Defenders, which I didn't really struggle with, to be honest with you. I find them a really comfortable boot. I don't find them overly heavy. If I'd worn my Aku Pilgrims, the GTXs, I think, yeah, I probably would have had the footfall conditions and I would have felt a little bit more underneath me, but didn't really struggle with the boots I had on, mate, if I'm honest. JB, sir, welcome along.
Because that's one thing a bit wary of, is that sometimes when I'm wearing my Akus, when I'm walking around, I don't feel as much of the ground as I would do if I'm wearing something a bit thinner. If you know what I mean? I just wondered if that might have aided as well, moving around.
Land Nav was running around with some minimalist shoes.
Yes.
So it wasn't the weird toey ones, but he had some minimalist ones on. And I'll be honest with you, we chatted about this before we went out, but we didn't really catch up afterwards. I think you're probably right. I think if you were trying to traverse any distance quickly in boots as opposed to trainers or something like that, like, you know, even like hiking shoes, you'd probably be making a lot more noise. But I think as soon as you're starting to go slowly anyway, you know, you can, I can in mine. I don't know about everybody in all their boots. I mean, Lance, you sort of sound like you're similar, but you can kind of feel if there's a branch that's going to snap. You can kind of, if you're walking slowly, you can kind of feel where it is and kind of if it's going to go. So you can obviously ease up. You can kind of shift it to one side, and you can move slowly. I mean, the other option is as well, you know, kneeling, crouching, crawling. These are all ways that you can kind of ease that. You can get to a location quietly. So you're all right. You know, ultimately, you know, if you've got a softer shoe, if you can't feel anything underneath you, then yeah. But I think if you're going slow enough, I don't think it makes a huge difference. But again, just going back to it, if you don't know where you're going, if you know, you're basically you're just testing the whole time as to I think I'm going this way, I think I'm going that way. Yeah, it's just noise. Noise was the biggest killer, I think, for us.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate, on that one. I mean, what I tend to do as well, sometimes at night time, if I know I'm not going into sort of like a hostile area and it's just purely moving from objective to objective, I'll usually sleep my rifle down, obviously, so I'm not avoiding having the barrel facing up higher than my head, which can potentially catch on stuff, so I'll have it down. But I'll usually sweep with my arm in front of me for a while, change direction and whatnot. I know it looks a bit daft under nods for someone doing that in front of you, but if it means that you can quickly feel a bramble and know that you can move it out of the way rather than it getting snagged on your kit and then you end up pulling off a tree with you, then, you know, so be it. But like Mike said, you know, if depending on the distance you've got to cover, you know, sometimes crawling would be a better option if you're sort of sub 20 meters, maybe. You know, no one wants to be crawling hundreds and hundreds of meters to get somewhere. But yeah, it's just one of them. It just comes with the territory. You know, if you're in woodland, you know, it's been incredibly dry the last couple of months. Everything's dried out. Any leaf litter that's on the floor is going to crunch. Any sticks dried out, it's just going to snap. You know, regardless of what you do, whether you've got Gen 4 nods on, you know, you can see it, but it's not going to stop you treading on it. You know, there's an awful lot of depth to that ground, you know, where layers of leaf litter build up and sticks get covered up. You think you're treading on leaves and they're not, and it's snap, there it goes. You know, there's only so much mitigation you can do against making noise. You're going to make noise at the end of the day. You know, a forest in the dead of night is a very, very quiet place. So any unnatural sounds or natural sounds, but like that consistent pattern of sound is going to draw attention. There's no getting around it. You know, that's the trouble.
We would have been better off with, I don't know if you can get them as a whistle, but I know obviously like deer barks and stuff like that, like the noise that they make. I think if we'd have just kind of walked a little bit.
I've got a duck caller. Wah, wah.
But if we'd have just, you know, made that kind of deer noise every once in a while, we'd have probably got away with it more than if we hadn't. Because, you know, there were so many deer running around that area, and they're not quiet, not fully quiet when they're coming through. You know, when we'd set up the LUP and I was waiting for the other three to kind of get back so that we could then relink, I was sort of just sitting there effectively on stag, and a couple of deer came screaming past at that point, and you know, they didn't seem to clock I was there, and the amount of noise they were making at that point. You know.
The other thing as well with deer as well, especially at night time, is if they are startled or anything like that, and they will go to ground. So you'll hear that sort of like, and if they do detect like you're there or they pick up your scent, they will just go to ground where they are. If they're in covered area and everything, they will just hunker down sort of thing till it's past, and then they move away. They're very clever. We should get deer on Recce, I think.
Yeah,
Recce deer. There we go.
Recce deer. A looksy deer.
Yeah.
I want to just take a second to talk about, because obviously stag banter. I think
it was pride. This was the best.
Always entertaining. But Danny and I, we're sitting there on stag. Danny's basically note taking. I've got Lance's thermal up because that was again the only way we could see anything of what was going on at that point. You could see a fire, and that was it. So without the thermal, you've got no idea about any of the rest of the activity going on. So I'm sitting there with the thermal, and then all of a sudden I hear just to my left, it's like, Mike, where's your mouth? I was like, that's a very strange thing to say. And then as a mid-reply, just get this hand come sweeping up against where my mouth is with just some cake. I've just filled my mouth with cake. So big shout out to Danny for the cake. Basically, that was lovely.
Danny
was a very weird way of offering it, but
so Danny was certainly the catering manager of the section for the weekend. Yeah, Mike, where's your mouth?
I think whenever you're on stag or anything like that, and it's quiet, and you're trying to be quiet as well, so you can't have loads of sitting there nattering and stuff. But we played a little game of I Spy. Again, when the planes are going over, there was a bit more noise. As soon as the plane stopped, that ended. But that was fun to play in the dark because it was just everything was beginning with D. Oh, it's the dark. Yeah.
Me and Boris had a bit of a moment when we was in the secondary LUP. I was sort of laying back in the bush. I was looking back towards our tracking in position from our original LUP back up towards us, and Boris was laying the other way. This is when you guys were down on the in the OP, and I heard this like. And then it stopped, and I heard this. I looked around and said, Boris. He went, yeah. Are you farting? And he went, I heard this. He went, no. He went, I'm doing my zip on my chest rig really slowly. Of course, that just fucking set me off. I literally had my hands, I was laying on the floor, I dropped my rifle, I just had my hands, and I was just, he's like looking at me through his nods going, I can see you shaking. It was comical. Through all the hardship and tiredness, there was some really funny moments. It was really good. Yeah. You got to have that bantery bits. It's brilliant.
That's one of the things I love about it. It's just, you're all miserable at the same time. You might as well be miserable together.
But I love it. I don't know what it is about it, but I just
was the best bit.
I love the challenge of it. It's odd. It's a bit freakish, really, but I enjoy that situation, which is very odd.
Yeah,
you're a stalker at heart.
I think so. I think I've missed my calling. 25 years wasted on the railway. I could have just been out stalking people.
I mean, I have to say, I haven't got a problem with sitting a stag, anything like that. Like, the difficulties I had, I think, where our first OP was obviously we were effectively laying head down into the valley still. Like the topography that we had was slightly kind of tilted, so you were having to look up.
It was all against us.
That was obviously uncomfortable.
It was all against us.
Yeah. So I mean that wasn't particularly fun. So I mean, again, this goes against all the training that we had throughout the day, because it was like, right, make sure you're comfortable. You want to be, nice and comfy as best you can, because you're going to be there for extended periods of time. And then we've found some OP where you're literally like arching your back against yourself, and it was just so uncomfortable.
And plus, you're looking uphill at them as well.
I take it the camp was almost where the
wooden structure is. The wooden structure, Asher. That was their main
where I almost lost an eye.
Possibly. Yes,
it is. I know where that is. Yeah, it's exactly that location.
And if you were stood, so Ash, if you were stood with your back to the hut, looking down the hill, in like as if you were stood where the doorway of that hut is, looking down the hill, we were directly opposite there, like, but up the hill the other side. We had that sort of arc to your front at 180 degree that we were sort of traversing that, trying to find the OP.
Because you've got that big bush down to the right-hand side of it, haven't you?
Yes, you've got a long. So if you're looking down here to the right, you've got a whole tree line of rhododendron, which you can get into, which is what we came from the other side, and came through it to look up at the village structures and stuff like that. So it was good. It was very, very good.
I mean, when we were sort of doing a bit of a debrief the next day, I think one of the key advantages is that you can see so much more in the daylight. And I know that that's a silly thing to say, but where you can then sit there and you can assess that we could potentially have snuck in that location, and we'd have maybe had a better location. We could have maybe sat
100%.
You know, but you don't 100%. Have that capability when it's getting dark and you're crawling around and you're trying to get eyes on without being spotted. You don't have that ability and that luxury to go, yes, this would have been the perfect opportunity and location to set up an OP.
Literally probably 12, 13 foot from where we had our OP in prior to getting sort of like the soft compromise when the aircraft started coming over. Me and Ryan walked back down there after we'd done the section attacks the next day, and that had all the op had finished. Everyone I know did mags and started making their way back to the harbour area to pack up and go. Me and Ryan actually walked round to where we put our OPs in, and literally there was a big pile of logs, like 12 foot to your right, that you could have got in behind, and there was plenty of gap through them that you could see through and stuff. And it's just sort of like, you know, I know these woods, I know these places like the back of my hand, and yet at night time you think, you're not going to remember, oh yeah, there's a big pile of logs just there, because it's like a fleeting moment. Do you know what I mean? But like you say, Mike, during the day, it's a whole different ball game.
And
I mean, perhaps next time it'd be cooler to get more time out on the ground during the day to put an OP in, so you know that's what you've got it. Do you know what I mean?
Even a situation where you know there's going to be an exchange happening at X time. You've got to watch it. You set up for that time,
and then you know you've got that OP that you're going to use for the coming up at night time. Because when I spoke to Ryan about it, he said sort of 9 times out of 10, if we do put an OP in when we're out on exercise, sort of like real still, if you like, it's done at night time. Obviously, it's done a great deal of distance further away than what we were doing it. So perhaps if we had the opportunity to make it a little bit more vanilla, and construct an OP in the area that we need to be in. Prior to the target package being there for the duration of the op, that might have been a bit cooler, because we'd actually get to experience like being in an actual OP that we've constructed, you know, albeit not under the same conditions as what a real guy would do, but you know, the simulation's still there to an extent. Do you know what I mean?
But I'm guessing one advantage to doing it at night though as well is the fact that the guys you're watching, I'm guessing their tasking was kind of, if they heard you, to make it aware that they heard you, sort of thing, in some sort of way or stuff like that, maybe. Or
yeah, I mean, I believe it was sort of like, if you hear a branch break, you know, you sort of tend to ignore it. If you hear a couple of branches break in the same area, then you might turn and have a little look.
Yeah.
You know, if you hear continuous noise, it might be a bomb, put a spotlight on it for a few seconds, and stuff like that. You know, going through the motions of someone. But they were sort of like, I believe the tasking for them was to be a bit of a ragtag rebel force, you know, disciplined but not overly disciplined, you know, but still maintain them foot patrols and things like that.
They're definitely not disciplined.
Yeah. So you see the clientele we were dealing with, Ash.
Yes. Like Nav said, they definitely came looking, and they did. You know, I mean, ultimately there were foot patrols running around, and
yep.
You know, again, if you were just running that as a normal milsim event, you know, ultimately, if you were the op 4 in that scenario, and you just suddenly
if it had been a real milsim event, then
you're not going to be sitting there doing what they were doing. We would have had a patrol down on us within seconds.
Yeah. I was going to say, Alex and Baz would have got one each in the ball bag if it had been a real milsim event where I was. There was no way I was missing them.
But you enjoyed it at the end of it all then?
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yep, thoroughly enjoyed it. Yep.
The weather, the fact it didn't rain always makes things like that better.
Of course, yeah.
Like skirmish battle sims, anything like that. You know, if you're just having a bit of a firefight blap, and then you've got, you know, potentially a tent or something that you're drying off in, or you're not really kind of fighting out of your kit per se, and you're living out of your kit. Rain doesn't really matter, but as soon as it starts raining on that sort of situation where you're going to be getting wet. But ironically, if it had rained, it probably would have helped us get in and out of the area better because the noise would have been higher.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
we had planned to take wet kit, like we got wet kit with us, so it wasn't that we weren't necessarily kitted up for it.
I think the idea of bringing the additional stuff, although it might not have been needed for that event. I mean, I brought wet kit, I brought some warm kit with me. It's purely, like you say, it's going through the motions of admin yourself and having them and bits and bobs available, regardless of the time of year it is, because it's a training exercise, it's a training event. You want to have those bits on you purely because it's going to be there when you do need it. So it's allocated that bit of space in your kit and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is quite good at the end of the day.
No, I get that. But I've never needed a spare pair of trousers when we've gone to games. So, and if it's probably any more than a weekend event, I probably would take them. So, for example, if we did a Burgett or something like that, or something that required us to stay away for a longer period of time, then yes. But with a lot of woodland events, I mean, you look at when we did the Longmoor one and it rained at Legion. That rained the whole weekend. I appreciate that wasn't a rural event. We were in and out of the SF base. You remember? I mean, it was absolutely pissing it down. You're looking at
Gladius 3. I was just trying to think then. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, it was the one where we had the mortar. Basically, we had almost a good solid 24 hours of just wet weather.
Yeah,
we were coming back, taking off wet kit, trying our best to dry wet kit out, and then putting dry kit on. But then when you come back to swap over again, you just basically put wet kit back on again because there wasn't any dry kit left at that point. It was just all soaked.
Well, there just wasn't the time to dry kit, was there? Do you know what I mean?
But even then, I've never worried about trousers. Like the trousers, if they get wet, it's not the nicest, but for the most part, the upper bit where my thighs and everything are kind of stay relatively dry by the fact that I'm covering those. But as soon as you get your torso wet or cold or anything like that, or you're sitting there, that's when you start becoming proper miserable. Your legs, as long as you get the rest of your body warm, your legs will warm up and they'll start to dry out and everything again.
As long as the chest area and the feet stay dry, I don't think you've got much to complain about, if I'm brutally honest with you.
That's it. So even then, with a U-back for me, I'm not too fussed about having a wet top on, as long as I'm not stationary for a long period of time. So in like an urban situation like that, you're probably moving around a fair bit. I warm up quite quickly anyway doing that, so it's actually a relief to be cool.
I think one thing a bit of kit I changed next time is I wore my Dutch Woodland DPM U-backs, which in hindsight I sort of rather would have opted for a sort of loose fitting cotton t-shirt with a light jungle shirt over the top. Just so I've got those two bits of layers, because I do find it as nice and drying as a U-backs is. I find them. I don't like it hugging my skin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I find that I find myself doing this, like being a bit uncomfortable with it. Whereas I'd rather sooner have like a bit of a looser fitting shirt on, or even literally just a looser fitting sort of like field shirt, and then maybe my smock jacket over the top, something like that, or a lightweight combat jacket over the top.
I went for a field shirt in this particular event on the basis of I find a lot of the U-backs, you lose that camo panel. So as soon as you're wearing a chest rig or anything like that, you've just got a solid colour. Now I know that obviously some of the MTP U-backs, for example, they come with like the patterned kind of main body panels now, but a lot of the patterns that you get are generally kind of like, you've got the camo sleeve areas, and then the stretchy wicking fabric is generally just a solid base color. And I think where I was wearing sort of the chest rig and everything like that, I was very conscious of I don't want to lose that patterning and that kind of camouflage-ishness.
Agreed, absolutely agreed. But I'm really looking forward to it. The main thing from this event I got, not only was it brilliant, met some great new guys. Obviously the JBG lot are awesome. Nice going out with Mike and Danny and Wayne and Boris, on the newest guy that we've met. That's all brilliant.
Boris the Brazilian.
Boris, is he Brazilian? I couldn't place. I didn't know where his accent was from.
Danny said he was Brazilian. I didn't ask him. But
Brazilian Boris. So there we go. But for me, I'm really looking forward to squaring away my kit and sort of dissecting it and some reshaping some stuff and So we're sort of going through those motions in preparation for the next event, sort of thing. That's what I'm really buzzing for. I'm lucky in the fact that I've got a weekend off coming up, so I've got Sunday down the seaside, but Saturday maybe a bit of an admin day for Lancey Boy, which is all good.
We probably better come to a close on this one. If you've got any last minute questions, and please feel free to throw them in the chat. I don't think. Oh, Danny just said, does that mean we're getting old school Lance back?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Got to be done.
Next week, we're going to be chatting about CQB. We're going to be having a conversation on CQB as a team and individual do's and don'ts, things that we've learned, and the benefits of training from that perspective. It's kind of a bit of a follow-on from what we're talking about tonight. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so on our email of nofochat@hotmail.com. Our Instagram is @November_Foxtrot_NoFo, and the website is novemberfoxtrot.co.uk. You can also get in touch with us on our own individual Instagrams of @9voltairsoft for myself, @the1legion.uk_Pegasus. We had a problem with that last week, Ash, because I haven't had a chance to memorise yours yet, and it's a hard one to remember.
Can I just say, hang on a minute.
Last week.
There was, somebody said last week that there's an awful lot of dots in his name. There's fucking
No, I
one.
said there's a dot. You said there's no dot in there at all. So I don't know whose Instagram we sent you to last week, but it's @1legion.uk_Pegasus, and to get in touch with Lance is @the_punish_1_. You can also get in touch with Andy, who is currently on holiday. At the what's his
call sign quartermaster
_quartermaster. So there you go. Was one last comment from Lanav Challenge. One thing that would have been awesome would have been to try and snatch one of the rebels in the night.
Whoa.
Yep. Do that stealthily.
That's very nice, very nice. I mean, in all fairness, though, from tonight's show, I mean, I can see a part 2 of this coming out, because I don't know if we actually covered the sort of kit we took and the way we sort of set it up and things like that, our intentions of what we used. So I think it'd be quite good to revisit this in the not too distant future and sort of go through our sort of recce loadouts, if you like. That'd be quite cool, I think, to cover. Very exciting. And if in between now and then happening, it might give us a chance to admin what we took and what we've changed and go through that as well. I think that'd be quite good.
Yeah,
no, that could be an interesting one.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, on that note, we shall see you next week, Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Who would like the closing words?
I did it last week.
I do it every time I come on.
Well, there you go. Then Ash is doing it.
So it's Mike's turn.
Okay. So let's try and go through, because whilst there were
the seven S's.
Well, whilst there were 7 S's, there were actually more than that. So there's a couple that I want to mention, such as smiling.
Shenanigans.
Because with obviously all the cam cream that you've got on, if you then start running around with your pearly whites shining through, that's something that will give you away. Shenanigans is another one.
Yeah, let's go. Hang on. Let me just see.
Smells one, ain't it? That's not normally.
Hang on.
Smells one. Yeah.
Let me just see if there is actually a list on the Googles. No, there's not. It doesn't look like it now. Anyway, okay, what we'll do is we'll round robin it then, Mike. If you want to start, and we'll go around until we run out of this.
You've got geez, what was the one I was going to say?
Ash, you want to start?
Start with basic one.
Well.
Shape's a good one.
Okay,
silhouette.
Sound.
Silhouette was what
Mike
I was going to
said
say.
silhouette. Ash, back to you again.
Yeah.
What? Sound.
I said sound.
He said smell. There was smells on there.
Smell. I said smell earlier. Yeah, smell.
Yeah.
Signature.
Shine.
I'm not.
I think we are at 7 now.
Smell, sign, silhouette, signature.
Smiling. Shenanigans.
That's not one. They're not ones. Smiling and shenanigans is not one. There's only 6. Shape, shine, sound,
I've written all down
smell,
on my notepads in the garage.
silhouette, signature.
Shadows.
I can't remember.
Shadow, 7.
Sudden movement.
Sudden
Shape.
movement. We said shape.
Yeah, shape.
Yes.
Shape, shine, shadow, silhouette, sound, speed / sudden movement, and spacing. We forgot spacing.
Spacing was another one.
There we go.
JB just called us all spacs.
Yeah. Thanks, JB. I promise you we were listening.
Yeah.
I was not there.
Ash is not included in this.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the 7 S's. And like I say, I think there were more, and there were definitely a lot more.
I'm sure he said there is 9, but it's the 7 main ones. But there is sort of 9, but 7 main. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all's good.
Right. On that note, we shall see you next week. Have an absolutely cracking week. Stay NoFo and everything like that. Yeah.
We know, mate. We know you're not that rude.
We'll see you next week. Have a good one. See you later. Say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys. Ciao, Bella.
Oh, which outro do you want? 1, 2, or 3?
Oh, let's do a recce one. Is there a recce one in there?
Yes, we'll do this one. Cool.
Oh, there is.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, I reckon.